What's up gamers, Duma here. 3 days ago, I posted what I feel is the best one-bar multi-content PvE build in the game without using trial gear. 2 quick updates. Yesterday on stream, we pushed it even further, and St. Lothus is now down in under 6 minutes, and Veteran Vateshran has been cleared in under 21 minutes now with the build. It just keeps getting better. I spent most of the week playtesting the build in PvP, and it feels just as silly there as it does in PvE, with a handful of changes. I put a heavy focus on BGs first, and I have that in a very good place for you, which I'll go over primarily in this video. It's just insanely good for one bar setup in BGs currently. I also spent a little time in Cyrodiil just kind of feeling it out as a benchmark of where we are with it, and started working on that version, plus a proper 2-bar solo Cyrodiil version that I hope to have wrapped up next week as well. So today I have the full BG setup done and completed for you, and then I'll share a few odds and ends that I was using in Cyrodiil that I'm still working on. I'm streaming all the playtesting over on Twitch if you're ever interested in checking that out sometime, and I have the written guide up and available for you now over at the GAMEROOM.tv. Let's go. You want a stamina based race here? I feel Imperial is definitely the move. It's a super thirsty setup, and Imperial helps take the edge off, plus solid stamina build stats. I'm still moving attributes around. This was the final area I was comfortable with. We aren't really taking advantage much using high health, but there's a lot of really strong builds out there right now being played by some really great players, and at the end of the day, this is a 1-bar build. It's going to have its limits, especially defensively. And this was a safe health amount for me to get in the middle of fights and get busy without fear of getting two-shot by something coordinated. You can move this around if you prefer, but I would definitely keep your health above 30k, sacrificing the Piercing Cold passive for 8% more damage when under 30k. You're just going to get blown up in 8v8s, and we have plenty of damage already. And then we'll be using the Serpent Mundus, Bear Haunch Food, and Tripods. For our gear, Wretched Vitality is basically required to play the build. You'll need to get this crafted. Very simple TLDR here. It keeps you swimming in resources with a bit of weapon damage. You'll need both heavy, stam, and mag sustain here. It's only a 3 trait requirement to craft, so very little barrier to access here. For our second set for BGs, the primary options were Way of Fire and Savaras. I really broke these two down to see which one is actually superior, and I think the answer is kind of clear. I ran about 30 seconds on a 3 mil dummy with each several times, and here's the data. Way of Fire plus its burning is roughly 24-21 DPS, and then Savaras 2 procs and taking the difference of the poison effect from the Way of Fire's log gives about 18-21 DPS. Crit RNG and status effect RNG can swing both of these all over the place. I've had logs where Savaras came out on top. I've had logs where burning was trucking and Way of Fire was on top, but this is about the average here. And this is also not doing Savaras much favors in the comparison because the poison status effect has an execute scaling component not being reflected here. If you look at Way of Fire, it only affects a single target, and after this next patch soon, you'll be required to light weave somewhat proficiently in order to proc it on cooldown. And with this melee and ranged mixed playstyle using throwing knife, it makes it not ideal at all, where you'll be missing tons of procs over time. However, Savaras procs on all enemies around the targets, not just one. On most all of your damage sources as well, even other dots. It's basically guaranteed to proc on cooldown as long as you're doing any kind of damage, and the dot bursts and applies to everything in a small AoE range. So the TLDR is Way of Fire is 1 dot on 1 target with a specific proc condition that's not ideal for the build after the patch. Or Savaras has an unlimited number of targets dot that's guaranteed to proc on cooldown from any range, from any source. It's not even a conversation. Savaras is just vastly superior, especially for BGs, and even more so for the congested nature 8v8s. It really chews up teams and adds quite a lot of pressure and resource drain over time. It's not a great Cyrodiil set though. This would be specifically for BGs. I wouldn't run around with this solo in Cyrodiil. It just doesn't have enough oomph for any 1v1 situations you'll end up in. But for BGs, it's a fantastic set and one of my go-tos for a lot of 1-bar setups. So we put it together like this. Heavy Savaras on the chest, reinforced with the rest medium and well fitted. Infused and physical harm on jewelry, including Oakensole. 1 Nern and 1 sharpened mace with stamina escapist poisons. On the popular potions page on the website, I have that recipe for you. I'll link in the video description for you as well, for those who need it. Defensively, this works best with a dodge roll focused playstyle since it's 1 bar. A few days ago, I posted this 1-bar DK PvP video, and at the 7-minute and 43-second mark of the video, I gave some advanced 1-bar dodge roll tips and tricks that'll apply exactly to this build as well. So if you didn't watch that one and want to elevate your game a bit with the well-fitted playstyle for 1 bar, I have that resource there available for you as well. For abilities, it gets a little weird. The main engine behind the build is the scribing throwing knife skill set up in the way we have it, with the multi-script basically making it a frag grenade exploding and hitting everything. War Mage's Defense, which is a shield that procs every single global you use this, and after Battle Spirit, it's somewhere around 3k in BGs and a little over 4k in Cyrodiil with the Bash and CP node. So this ends up absorbing a ton of junk over time thrown at you, like dots and status effects, and you just passively shield through it while staying offensive. And then Minor Vulnerability, which the multi-script will make this apply to everything it explodes on. And we have a primarily AoE based kit, so being able to reliably apply AoE Minor Vulnerability is really impactful. This is very expensive to spam, so we offset that with the scribing skill Chilling Soul, just periodically used to break up the flow of stamina drain. And it has a decent spammable tooltip at just over 8k, so you're able to keep up damage on a target while splitting resource drain fairly well. The original version of this, we had Netch on the bars, but I have since changed the bars, adding Arctic Blast for a much better setup. We're using the Druid's Resurgent script here for more stamina return on this one, offsetting the loss of Netch on the bars. And then the biggest one is Major Vitality on the third script, which increases our healing and shielding by 12%, most notably the shield from our knife spammable. If you don't have the Druid script yet, and also you aren't an Imperial, you may want to drop Arctic Blast for Netch, both for sustain, and then you get free purges from it as well as needed. That was the original version I was playing with on stream, and it worked fantastic. You just use the Warden's class script on Chilling Soul, so you get a great area effect CC, which is solid for BGs. But having it set up like this is superior because you end up getting some of your sustain back from Netch, from the Druid script, and then you get to use Arctic, which gives you more single target damage, more AoE damage, and has a more reliable stun to set up kills and CC whole groups more reliably, as you can control its location, which is around your body. I know that's a lot of stuff, but that's also why it all works so well, because it's so highly min-maxed in this quirky Blade Slinger playstyle, bringing a ton of stuff to the table, really elevating a single bar. Next, we have Deep Fissure, giving us our Major and Minor Breach. Something I'm pretty mid at myself is not recasting this early. I'm just too impatient for the 9-second timer and lose a lot of damage. I'm working on getting better at it myself, but make it a focus for yourself as well, because that second final hit hits much harder. Just gotta dial back that ADHD a bit and lock in a little better. Healing Contingency, this is the 1000th time you've seen it on the channel. It's just so nice in the way I'm using it with well-fitted traits on the 1-bar setup. Here's a video for you if this is new info. I'll link in the description as well. I recommend checking it out if you haven't. It'll teach you how to use it in the way I do, which is more than what is intuitive just from the tooltip. A lot more. And finally, my favorite ult in the game right now, the dual-wield ult Thriving Chaos. It's just perfect for this setup. This has a really cheap cost and blast targets and a cone in front of you, applying a bleed and then hemorrhage every tick as well. So 2 dots per target, and then increases your damage done by 6% per target hit, up to 6, so up to 36% more damage, and then heals you for 60% of the bleed damage it does. On stream, I've had moments where I ran up to a group on a flag or something with Arctic rolling and landed Thrive on the group just a moment before Deep Fissure hit, and it legitimately looked like I Cyrodiil bombed them. They just exploded and disappeared. I was just as surprised as them. And then defensively, look at this foolishness. I took it into Cyrodiil just to fill some things out, and look at the survivability this gave us here. Essentially 8 seconds of immortality, only hitting 3 to 4 people with it. That, and if I was using a proper 2-bar setup, actually trying to go hard with it, I'd have an 18 to 24% damage buff during that time to try and do work with it. And since every damage button on your bars, other than Soul, is AoE, plus Savar is proccing an AoE dot on everything, this is just perfect. It absolutely shreds groups when everything is rolling and gives you tons of survivability. This brings much more to the table for this setup than just something like Dawnbreaker here. It's very good. Look, here's the deal for Cyrodiil. The game's changed a lot. Players are outrageously strong offensively, defensively, sustain, everything, and proper built 2-bar setups that's out there. The variance between 1 and 2 bars only grew further apart in this area with the onset of scribing and just the current state of the game. You can't reasonably expect to go out there and push up against that with 1 bar having like 80% of the strength in all the areas of offense, defense, and such, other than some really niche builds like gank blades and some bow builds and some miscellaneous things. Anyone can post a highlight reel on YouTube to the contrary, but that's not always the reality for the player base as a whole. It's also why I stopped recommending a lot of these type of builds for players to go out there solo to not set them up for failure. Most 1-bar setups are just going to be mid at best, and any proficient player is just going to run you down in an open field and out sustain you and out pressure you. That said, in my experience with 1-bar builds in the last few patches, this one is among the better of them, although still with tons of open world weaknesses, but I'm still working on it. I'm going to spend a little more time with it, and if it doesn't shape up quick, I'm just going to pivot to the full 2-bar solo Cyrodiil setup, which I think is going to be pretty nasty, and I'm going to hopefully get that finished next week for everyone. The changes I made for this on Cyrodiil was to change the pants and helm to heavy, so a heavy chest, heavy pants, and heavy helm, all 3 impin, and then I changed the well-fitted shoulders to impin as well. So 3 heavy, 4 medium, 4 impin, 3 well-fitted. I'm not wearing any of that now, so the stats aren't reflective of it. And then again, like I said before, Savara's is not a super hot open world set, so I'll be swapping that out as well. I'm not sure exactly for what yet. And then I use a CP of Resilience, Focus Mending, Ironclad, and Master at Arms. And for the red CP, I use Balanced Vitality, Bastion, Hane's Refuge, and Sustained by Suffering. But again, all of that is a work in progress, and I'm skeptical on how it ultimately shakes out, although the 2-bar version is looking really good. And that's it, gamers. This one is a battleground beast, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll leave you with some gameplay so you can see it in action. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.
You make me move, you make me dance, you make my heart beat super fast. You lift me up, you make me laugh. Baby, you're the best I ever had. You're the best I ever had. fast.